Welcome in everyone and welcome to the Cup of Tea channel. So we've just had our Diablo 4 Campfire chat with the developers going over patch 1.1.1. There's going to be some changes with classes in terms of passives as well as abilities, but also additionally we also have some item changes. So during the Campfire livestream, the developers wanted to go over the Uber uniques and what they wanted to change about it. And one of the things was the actual stats that it rolled with. They didn't want to swap everything out to be a perfect stat, like the best weapon that you possibly want. Instead, they want to change a stat out so then it's much more sought after and much more valuable to the build that you want to contribute to. So for example, the slide they provided us with the Hellhammer, beforehand it would roll a damage increase to crowd control enemies. They've now decided to swap that out and provide instead critical strike damage. Just a quick heads up, so when the new patch does drop, if you already have this item in your inventory, it will still have the old stats that it originally did. If you're looking to have that critical strike damage increase version, you'll have to farm that new item. So when it came to the Campfire talks, even though all the classes are getting changes here and there, the Sorcerer and Barbarian are going to be receiving a lot more changes, a lot more improvements to the classes and that. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to go through a couple of slides. If you need some more time to read through in detail what you want, you can pause the video and that, but we're just going to quickly blast through. So with the Sorcerer, they're going to make improvements to the fire and lightning builds mainly, but also they have made some changes to the Paragon system, as well as certain passives, as well as affixes. So this is going to help them in terms of pumping out more damage with different builds, but also helping improve the survivability as well, as I know some sorcerers do struggle in the higher nightmare dungeons. We're now going to move on to the Barbarian. So when it comes to your base skills such as Flay, Lunging Strike, Frenzy, the Fury regen that you're going to get off that has been increased a little bit, but also your core skills such as your Enhanced Charge, they've increased the damage from 30% up to 60%. They've also made some changes to the Barbarian passive. So for example, they've increased the damage reduction from the aggressive resistance from 3% up to 4%, but we've had some larger jumps in numbers with the Gushing Wounds. Bleed damage when overpowering increased from 11% all the way up to 70%, so quite a jump up. And they've also helped out with the Walking Arsenal bonus, so the damage duration is now increased from 6 seconds all the way up to 8 seconds, making it a lot easier for players to get those free stacks. As well, Barbarian legendaries and aspects have also received some tweaks in terms of increases in damage, but if we look more towards the bottom for the aspect of Bold Kathos, we have damage reduction if standing in it from 5 to 15 bumped up to 15 to 25, and the Earthquake aspect, damage bonus in the Earthquakes increased from 5 to 15 all the way up to 15 to 25 as well. And as mentioned earlier, with the Uber uniques, they have made some changes in terms of swapping stats out, but also they've made some increases here and there to make these items a lot more desirable. We'll now move on to the Rogue. So the developers said they're very happy with where the Rogue is currently sitting, but they still wanted to make some improvements around the class. So for example, the Invigorating Strike, energy threshold has been increased from 50% up to 75%. The Forceful Arrow, primary Forceful Arrow, instead of penetrating through vulnerable enemies, it will now penetrate on its third cast. And additionally, Caltrops, Poison Trap, and Rain of Arrows receive some love as well. With the Rogue passives, they've also made increases to the Lucky Hit chance, as well as the damage over time from the Rugged passive. They've also made some changes with the Rogue legendaries as well, with the Elusive Menace aspect, with no longer requiring to be hit from close enemies, as well as improvements to cooldown reduction with the Quickening Fog aspect. And finally for the Rogue, obviously the Uber unique stat changes. We're now going to move on to the Druid. Very similar to the Barbarian in the early game, it's difficult to get your resources up for your basic skills, so they've made some improvements with the Earth Spike, Claw, and the amount of spirit it generates, as well as improvements on the companion damage. As you can see, the Raven skill passive damage got an increase from 13% up to 20%, but the Rabies skill got a big buff from 76% up to 110%. The Druid legendary and aspects also got some buffs along the way, with spirit cost reduction for the Metamorphic Stone, but a damage increase from 80 to 100% up to 100 to 120%. And as mentioned earlier, they wanted to make improvements to your Lucky Hit chance and overpower stats as well, so they've made an increase to your class mechanic of Lucky Hit chance increase from 20% to 40% with its overload. Moving on to the Necromancer now, so they've made some changes with the skills, paragons, as well as legendaries. So starting off with skills, your Bone Spirit, Enhanced Bone Spirit, cooldown reduction is increased from 6 to 7 seconds. With the Paragon, the Wither legendary board, the willpower requirement for bonuses reduced from 50 to 40, as well as bonus damage per 40 willpower is increased from 2.5 up to 4%. And lastly, some changes to legendaries and aspects for the Necromancer. For example, the aspect of Empowering Reaper, rather than it being critical hits with Sever, it is now just damaging enemies with Sever, has a 10 to 20% chance to spawn a Pool of Blight under the target that will deal 20 to 60% more bonus damage. And probably one of the best changes for a Necromancer with the unique legendary of Greaves of the Empty Tomb. Intelligence affix has now been replaced replaced with bonus movement speed. And some good news for those minion builds as well. For the Druid and Necromancer, they've implemented some damage reduction from the Balrog Fire Breath, but as well as the elite affixes such as the Fire Enchanted, the Electrified Obelisks, and the Shock Lancers. The Temerity Uber Unique Legs have also received some changes in terms of stat replacements, so instead of all stats affix, they have now replaced it with the maximum life, and the barrier is now based off your maximum life instead. In terms of Malignant Hearts, they've made a change to the Caged Heart of Spell Breaking. So instead of taking elemental damage and gaining resistance to that one element you were hit by, it is now just a general damage reduction for 5 seconds. As well, Blizzard are going to be making some changes with the Nightmare Dungeons. First of all, with the mob density, they're going to be increasing the amount of monsters you'll be getting inside a dungeon. Additionally, the bosses at the end of the dungeon will have a larger HP pool, so you're not going to be ending up one-shotting the boss at the very end. But in return, they are going to be guaranteeing a 100% drop chance for a legendary from that. In addition, they want to be implementing some quality of life changes for the dungeons as well, such as removing some of the Nightmare Dungeon affixes, such as the Resource Drain, Cold Enchanted, as well as Backstabber, as well as reverting the teleport out of dungeon. So instead of 5 seconds, it's going to be back down to 3 seconds. And as you saw earlier on with those posts as well, they will be looking to do quality of life improvements such as stash improvements, as well as respec cost reduction, but also guaranteeing legendaries at the end of Legion events, as well as treasure goblins. And to finally add on for the Campfire chat, they did mention about making improvements for the mounts, but didn't go into great detail. However, after the Campfire chat, they did put out a tweet saying they were going to allow you to use your charge to break through barricades to be able to explore Sanctuary a lot more easily. I just wanted to end the video to say this isn't all final. They still might make some changes before the patch notes go live on the Wednesday, but the official release date for the patch should be on the 8th of August. This is the first time I've done a video like this before in terms of in-depth and length, but if you did find the video super useful and enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe for more Diablo content, and be sure to check out my shorts for more simplified Diablo guides.